How did you outfox your ex in family court? My ex thought he was brilliant bringing his mother as a character witness. She'd always despised me from day one, calling me that girl who trapped her precious son. Now she was sitting in the courtroom like some avenging angel, ready to tell the judge what a terrible mother I was and why her son deserved full custody. But what none of them knew was that for the past 8 months, I'd been working part-time at Sunset Manor, the nursing home where his 92-year-old grandmother lived. Mrs. Patricia was sharp as a tack despite what her family thought, and she'd been watching their behavior with growing disgust. She'd always been kind to me, even after the divorce. While the rest of the family treated me like I had the plague, she'd slip me $20 bills for the babies and ask about their school activities. I thought she was just being nice. The day before our court hearing, she asked me to stay after my shift. Her roommate was at bingo, so we were alone. She reached into her nightstand drawer and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Honey," she said, her voice steady and serious, "my family thinks I'm too senile to understand what's happening. They talk around me like I'm furniture, but I hear everything, and I see everything, and I'm disgusted by what they're planning to do to you." Inside that envelope was a gold mine. Printed emails between my ex and his mother, discussing how to fabricate stories about my mental health. Screenshots of him begging his college fraternity brothers to write fake character references, promising to pay them for their trouble. Text messages where his sister coached witnesses on exactly what to say to make me sound unstable. But the crown jewel was a voice recording she'd made on her old iPhone. His grandmother had pretended to nap while my ex practiced his testimony in her room, and she'd recorded the whole thing. In crystal clear audio, you could hear him admitting he was making up stories about me being drunk around the kids, about me neglecting them, about me having episodes. "I just need to sound convincing," he said on the recording. "The judge won't fact-check everything. Mom's testimony should seal the deal, and then I won't have to pay child support anymore." Court day arrived, and I was terrified despite having the evidence. My ex looked confident in his expensive suit, flanked by his high-priced legal team. His mother sat in the front row wearing pearls and her most righteous expression, ready to destroy me. His lawyer opened with a devastating character assassination. I was portrayed as an unstable woman who couldn't provide a safe environment for children. They had photos, witness statements, even a timeline of my supposed breakdown after the divorce. Then his mother took the stand. She delivered her rehearsed performance flawlessly. How I'd always been irresponsible, how she'd witnessed me being emotionally unstable around the children, how her son was the only stable parent figure in their lives. She even managed to cry on cue when describing her concern for her grandchildren's welfare. The judge was taking notes, nodding occasionally. I felt my world crumbling. Then my lawyer stood up with a slight smile and said, "Your Honor, we'd like to call a rebuttal witness." "Who?" the judge asked. "Patricia Henderson, the defendant's grandmother." You should have seen my ex's face. Pure confusion, then growing horror as his 92-year-old grandmother was wheeled into the courtroom by a nursing aide. His mother's jaw literally dropped. Mrs. Patricia adjusted her glasses, looked directly at the judge with complete clarity and said, "Your Honor, I raised that boy from the time he could walk, and I am ashamed of what he's become. I have evidence showing he's been coaching witnesses to commit perjury in your courtroom." The bailiff helped her hand over the manila envelope. As the judge reviewed the emails, texts, and listened to portions of the recording on headphones, my ex was frantically whispering to his lawyer. But it was too late. When the judge finished, her expression had completely changed. She looked at my ex with barely contained fury and said, "Sir, this court does not take kindly to manufactured evidence and coached testimony. The perjury in this case is extensive and deliberate." I got full custody immediately. My ex got supervised visitation only, pending a criminal investigation for perjury and fraud. His child support actually increased because the judge discovered he'd been hiding income. As we left the courtroom, his grandmother reached out and squeezed my hand. "Those babies deserve better than liars," she whispered, then winked at me. His mother hasn't spoken to either of us since.
What's the funniest game that turns serious fast? My college roommates and I invented this stupid drinking game called Truth Bomb, where you had to confess your most embarrassing secret or take a shot. We thought we were so clever sitting around our cramped dorm room with cheap vodka and way too much confidence. The rules were simple. Roll the dice, pick a category, spill your guts. Most embarrassing crush, or worst thing you did in high school type stuff. Harmless college nonsense that would give us something to laugh about the next morning while nursing our hangovers. We'd been playing for about an hour, sharing stories about cheating on tests and lying to our parents, when my roommate Jake rolled snake eyes. Double sixes meant you had to tell the darkest secret you'd never shared with anyone. The nuclear option. Jake just shrugged and said, "Easy, I've been stealing my dad's identity for 3 years." We all laughed, waiting for the punchline. But Jake's face stayed completely serious. He pulled out his wallet and showed us 2 driver's licenses, one with his name, one with his father's, same photo on both. "My dad's been in prison since I was 15, he said matter-of-factly. "Identity theft, credit card fraud, the whole thing. Mom couldn't afford college, so I've been using his credit to pay tuition, rent, everything. I'm about $80,000 deep in his name." The room went dead silent. My other roommate Mike set down his beer and asked, "Dude, what happens when he gets out?" "Next month," Jake replied. "He gets released next month and has no idea what I've done. I'm basically screwed." That's when Sarah, who lived across the hall and had joined our game, decided it was her turn to escalate things. "Well, since we're confessing felonies," she said, "I've been selling my roommate's Adderall to half the campus for 2 years. Made about 15 grand so far." She actually pulled out a notebook with customer names and payment schedules, like a drug dealer's ledger, but with college students' real names and dorm room numbers written in purple gel pen with little hearts dotting the I's. Mike stared at the notebook, then at Sarah. "You sold me pills last month. I thought you were getting them from a pharmacy." "Nope, straight from Emma's prescription bottle. She thinks she's been losing them. Girl's so scattered she never notices they're missing." That's when Mike completely lost it. He stood up, grabbed the vodka bottle, and smashed it against the wall. Glass and alcohol everywhere, the smell filling our small room. "You wanna know my secret?" he screamed. "I've been recording everything that happens in this room for 6 months." He pointed to what we'd all assumed was a decorative plant in the corner. Hidden inside was a tiny camera. My dad's a lawyer. He told me to document everything for liability purposes. I've got hours of footage of all of us drinking underage, Sarah dealing drugs, Jake talking about fraud. The plant camera had been there since September. Every party, every conversation, every illegal thing we'd done in that room was recorded. Mike's dad apparently reviewed the footage monthly as part of some paranoid parenting strategy. Sarah lunged for the camera, but Mike blocked her. "Too late. It automatically uploads to a cloud server. My dad's probably already seen tonight's confession session." Jake collapsed onto his bed, head in his hands. "My life is over. Your dad's going to turn me in." "Not just you," Mike said, his voice getting quieter. "All of us. He's been waiting for enough evidence evidence to get me transferred to a different school. Away from bad influences, he called it. That's when I realized the camera had caught everything. Me buying stolen pills from Sarah, Jake explaining his identity theft scheme, all of us drinking in the dorm, which was already enough to get expelled. Sarah was frantically calling her dealer connections, warning them about the recordings. Jake was researching how to disappear before his dad got out of prison. Mike was texting his lawyer father, begging him not to press charges against his friends. By morning, our entire friend group had imploded. Sarah transferred schools before the semester ended. Jake dropped out and moved across the country. Mike got sent to a private college in another state. The campus drug ring Sarah had been running got busted 2 weeks later. 12 students expelled, including 3 who'd never even met Sarah but had bought pills from her network. What started as a stupid drinking game in a dorm room ended up destroying multiple lives and exposing the biggest drug operation in our school's history. All because we thought confessing secrets would be funny.
My mother-in-law said I looked desperate in my wedding dress, so I wore her dream dress instead. So there I was, trying on my dream wedding dress at the bridal shop with my fiancé Kevin and his mom Linda. The dress was this gorgeous off-shoulder mermaid style that made me feel like a princess. I was spinning around in front of the mirror, totally in love with how it looked, when Linda just rolled her eyes and said, "Don't you think that's a bit desperate looking? You're trying too hard to be sexy on your wedding day." I felt my heart sink. Kevin just stood there saying nothing, which made it worse. The sales lady looked uncomfortable and pretended to check her phone. Linda kept going. "I mean, at your age, maybe something more conservative would be better, more classy, less attention-seeking." That night at dinner, she wouldn't stop talking about how her own wedding dress from 1987 was timeless elegance. She kept showing me pictures on her phone of this puffy Princess Diana-style dress with huge sleeves and enough fabric to make a tent. "This is what a real bride looks like," she said. "Not like these modern girls showing off everything." Kevin finally spoke up and told her to stop, but the damage was done. I spent the whole week second-guessing my dress choice. Maybe she was right. Maybe I did look desperate. I even went back to the shop to try on more conservative options, but nothing felt right. Then my sister Emma came over and found me crying in my bedroom, surrounded by wedding magazines. When I told her what happened, she got this evil grin on her face. "Wait, didn't Linda say she kept her wedding dress in perfect condition in her closet? The one she's so proud of?" That's when Emma hatched the most brilliant plan ever. She called Linda and told her I was having second thoughts about my dress and wanted to see hers for inspiration. Linda was so excited she practically ran over with the dress bag, going on about how she always hoped one of her daughters-in-law would appreciate real fashion. The dress was exactly as hideous as I remembered from the photos. Massive puffy sleeves, a high neckline that went up to my chin, and enough tulle to hide a small car. But I put on the most excited face I could manage and told Linda it was absolutely perfect. "You're so right," I said. "This is what true elegance looks like. Would it be possible for me to borrow it?" Linda literally started crying happy tears. She called all her friends to tell them her daughter-in-law was wearing her dress. She posted about it on Facebook with the caption, "Finally, a girl with taste." The whole family thought it was so sweet that I wanted to honor Linda's legacy. But here's where it gets good. The morning of the wedding, I had both dresses at the venue. Linda's monstrosity was hanging in the bridal suite where she could see it. My actual dress was hidden in my maid of honor's car. I put on Linda's dress for all the getting ready photos, letting her fuss over me and fix the sleeves. About an hour before the ceremony, I told Linda I needed a moment alone to center myself before walking down the aisle. As soon as she left, Emma rushed in with my real dress. We had exactly 20 minutes to completely change my look. My makeup artist touched up my lipstick, my hairstylist adjusted a few curls, and I slipped into the dress that actually made me feel beautiful. Linda was standing at the back of the church when the music started. I watched her face go from pride to confusion to absolute horror as I walked down the aisle in my off-shoulder mermaid dress. Kevin's jaw dropped in the best way. The photographer captured every second, including Linda's face going through all 5 stages of grief in real time. After the ceremony, Linda cornered me by the cake table. "What happened to my dress?" she hissed. I smiled sweetly and said, "Oh, I decided you were right. I should wear something that makes me feel confident and beautiful, not desperate. Thanks for the advice." She tried to cause a scene, but Kevin shut it down immediately. Turns out, seeing his mom call me desperate and then watching me handle her manipulation made him realize how toxic she'd been. He told her if she couldn't respect his wife, she could leave early. The best part? During the reception, Linda's sister Margaret came up to me and whispered, "I've been waiting 30 years for someone to put Linda in her place. That dress looks absolutely stunning on you, dear." Linda barely spoke to us for months after the wedding.
Have you ever been mistaken for someone's baby daddy at a Build-A-Bear? I was at the mall buying a birthday gift for my 5-year-old niece when it happened. She'd specifically requested a bear that looks like Uncle Mike, which meant I was standing in Build-A-Bear at 2 p.m. on a Saturday, holding a brown bear and debating whether to add the tiny glasses that matched mine when I felt a sharp tap on my shoulder. "Really, Marcus? This is where you've been?" I turned to find a woman I'd never seen before, holding a toddler and looking at me with pure rage. She was maybe 30, wearing yoga pants and an expression that could melt steel. "I'm sorry. Don't you dare pretend you don't know me." She shifted the kid to her other hip. 3 years, Marcus. 3 years of dodging child support, and I find you here buying teddy bears?" Everyone in the store was now staring. A Build-A-Bear employee froze mid-stuff, cotton filling suspended in the air. Several moms had their phones out. "Ma'am, my name is Mike. I think you have me confused." "Oh, you're Mike now? Changed your name too?" She stepped closer. The toddler reached for my glasses with sticky fingers. "Lily, look! It's Daddy. The daddy who abandoned us." The kid looked at me with zero recognition and more interest in the bear I was holding. Several gasps echoed through the store. A grandmother pulled her grandkids closer like deadbeat dad energy was contagious. I pulled out my driver's license. "Look, see? Michael Adora, not Marcus." Never been Marcus. She squinted at it suspiciously. Nice fake ID. You think I'm stupid? That's when another woman rushed into the store, also carrying a toddler. This one looked frantic, scanning the crowd until her eyes landed on us. Ashley, there you are. I've been looking everywhere. She stopped short, staring at me. Her face went through several emotions before landing on shock. Oh my god, Marcus? Now I had two women staring at me like I owed them money. The second woman looked between me and Ashley, putting pieces together. Wait, the second woman said slowly. You found Marcus? Here? I told you I saw him at the mall, Ashley said triumphantly. And of course he's pretending he doesn't know us. Probably here with his new family. I held up both hands, still clutching the bear. Ladies, I swear on this bear's unstuffed life, I'm not Marcus. I'm Mike. I'm an accountant. I've never met either of you. The second woman studied my face carefully. Then she pulled out her phone and showed Ashley a photo. Ash, look at this picture of Marcus again. Ashley looked at the phone, then at me, then back at the phone. The rage slowly transformed into embarrassment. Oh no. She covered her mouth. I'm not Marcus, I confirmed. I'm just Mike, trying to buy a bear for my niece. The crowd was still watching this unfold like a reality show. One teenager had been live streaming the whole thing. The Build-A-Bear employee asked quietly if I still wanted to add a sound to my bear. Ashley's face was now bright red. I'm so sorry. You just look exactly like, from behind you looked, oh god, everyone's staring. It's fine, I lied. It was not fine. I was now mall famous as the alleged deadbeat Build-A-Bear dad. The second woman tried to defuse the situation. He does look similar to Marcus. The height, the build. Marcus is white, Ashley hissed. Details blur when you're angry, her friend offered helpfully. They quickly left, Ashley mumbling apologies while shielding her face from the phones still recording. I stood there holding my bear, wondering if I should just leave town entirely. The Build-A-Bear employee finally spoke. So, did you want to add a heartbeat? I finished making the bear, added the glasses, skipped the heartbeat, definitely skipped the voice recording. As I was paying, the teenage employee leaned in conspiratorially. That was wild. But hey, at least you know you have a doppelganger out there who owes a lot of child support. Great, I muttered. The video, of course, went viral. My sister saw it before I could warn her. My niece's birthday party was filled with relatives making jokes about my secret family. The best part? 2 weeks later, the real Marcus was caught when someone recognized him from all the attention the video got. He'd been living 2 towns over under a different name. Ashley sent me a message on Instagram thanking me for inadvertently helping catch him. She also sent a $50 Build-A-Bear gift card for the trauma. I haven't been back to that mall since.
What family tradition did you realize was actually illegal? Every summer, my family held the lottery, where one kid would disappear to work the farm. Not visit the farm, work it. From June to August, no contact, no visits, just gone. We thought everyone's family did this until I mentioned it at school, and my teacher's face went pale. The ritual was simple. All the cousins aged 10 to 16 would gather at Grandpa's house Memorial Day weekend. He'd put our names in his old coffee can and draw one. That kid packed a bag and left with Uncle Pete to the property upstate. We'd see them again Labor Day, thinner, quieter, with rough hands and hollow eyes. It builds character, the adults said. Teaches the value of hard work. My cousin Sarah went when she was 11. Came back barely speaking, flinching at loud noises. Just tired from farm work, her mom explained. Sarah never talked about that summer. None of them did. My brother Marcus got picked when he was 13. I remember him trying not to cry as Uncle Pete loaded his bag into the truck. See you in September, he whispered to me. When he came back, he had scars on his hands and wouldn't sleep without the lights on. What happens at the farm? I asked him once. We work, was all he'd say, staring at nothing. The thing is, we never questioned it. Every family had traditions, right? My friend Jenny's family made kids fast for 3 days when they lied. Tyler's dad made him kneel on rice when he got bad grades. This was just our thing. I got picked when I was 12. The coffee can ritual. My name on the yellowed paper. My stomach dropped, but I didn't cry. Crying meant you were weak, and weak kids had harder summers. That's what Marcus had whispered to me. Uncle Pete barely talked during the 4-hour drive. Just smoked cigarettes and listened to talk radio. The farm wasn't what I expected. It was more like a compound. Several rundown buildings, no animals, just fields of some plant I didn't recognize. There were other kids there, not just cousins. Kids I'd never seen before. Maybe 15 of us, all different ages. We slept in a barn with no windows on moldy mattresses. Wake up was 4 a.m. The work wasn't farming, it was processing. Cutting, drying, packaging plants in a sweltering shed. My hands bled the first week from the repetitive cutting. Meal was once a day, usually beans and stale bread. Water when they remembered. Where do these plants go? I asked another kid. Shut up and work, he said. Questions make it worse. 2 weeks in, a kid named Diego tried to run. They brought him back that night. We could hear him screaming from the punishment shed, then nothing. He worked slower after that, one arm hanging funny. I lasted 6 weeks before I collapsed from dehydration. Woke up in the main house with Grandpa staring down at me. Weak like your father, he said. But you'll toughen up. That's when I saw the books on his desk. Financial ledgers, shipping manifests, client lists, the plans we were processing. I finally understood what they were. Why we couldn't tell anyone. Why the kids came back different. The last 2 weeks were the worst because I knew. Every package I sealed, every plan I processed, I was committing crimes. But what choice did I have? I was 12, in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by armed uncles. They drove me home Labor Day weekend. Same as always. Good season, Uncle Pete said, handing me an envelope. Your earnings, $500 for 3 months of slavery. I tried to tell my parents. Mom just said I was being dramatic. Dad said farm work was supposed to be hard. You survived, didn't you? Made you stronger. But I couldn't let it go. The other kids' faces haunted me. Diego's arm, Sarah's silence, Marcus's nightmares. So I did something stupid and brave. I told Mrs. Patterson, my social studies teacher. She listened to the whole story, her face getting paler with each detail. Then she said the words that changed everything. I'm a mandated reporter. I have to call this in. Within 48 hours, our house was raided. Then Grandpa's compound. Turns out our family tradition was one of the largest drug operations in the state, using child labor to avoid suspicion. 12 adults arrested, including my grandfather, father, and 4 uncles. They found 23 kids at the compound. Some had been there all summer, some longer. Diego's arm was broken in 3 places. 2 kids were hospitalized for malnutrition. The trials lasted 2 years. I testified against my own family, described every detail of that summer. They got 15 to 25 years each. The family called me a traitor, said I destroyed our legacy, but 23 kids went home, got therapy, got to be kids again. Sometimes I dream about the coffee can, my name being pulled. I wake up gasping, but then I remember, no kid will ever disappear to that farm again. No more lotteries, no more traditions. My cousin Sarah called me last week. First time in 5 years. Thank you, she said, for being
What is an experience you had at a courthouse that you'll never forget? I was 23, working nights at a warehouse, when I got slapped with a $750 noise violation that would destroy my ability to pay rent. The citation claimed I was playing music at excessive volume at 2:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. One problem, I was clocked in at work, 40 miles away. The officer who wrote it was convinced he had the right apartment. I know what I heard, he'd written in his report. Rap music, shaking the walls, multiple complaints from neighbors, but I worked 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. shifts. My time card proved it. My supervisor wrote a statement confirming I was operating a forklift at the exact time this supposed party was happening. I couldn't afford to just pay it and move on. That fine was more than half my rent, so I gathered everything: work schedules, GPS data from my phone, even security footage showing me at work. I practiced my statement 100 times in the mirror. This had to go perfectly. The courthouse smelled like old coffee and disappointment. I watched person after person accept plea deals, too tired or scared to fight. When they called my name, Officer Jacobs walked to the stand, looking annoyed that anyone would challenge his word. He was young, maybe a year or two older than me, with that aggressive rookie energy. Your Honor, on the night in question, I responded to multiple noise complaints at 412 Oak Street, apartment 3B. The music was audible from the street. I knocked repeatedly before the defendant finally answered. I almost laughed. Finally answered? I was loading trucks 40 miles away. Officer Jacobs, I began when it was my turn, hands trembling slightly. Can you describe the person who answered the door? He looked irritated. You did. The defendant. What was I wearing? It was dark. You were in the doorway. How tall was the person? His jaw tightened. Average height. Look, I know it was you. Your Honor, I'm 5 feet 4 inches. Here's security footage from my workplace, showing me in my warehouse uniform at 2:47 a.m. Here's my time card. Here's my supervisor's sworn statement. I spread out my evidence for the judge, but Officer Jacobs doubled down. I've written hundreds of citations. I don't make mistakes. The defendant is obviously lying. That's when the judge asked the critical question. Officer Jacobs, how many noise violations have you written at that specific address? Jacobs straightened up, proud. That building is a constant problem, Your Honor. I've probably written 20 to 30 violations there in the past 6 months. These young people think they can party all night. 20 to 30 violations? The judge's eyebrows shot up. From one building? At least. Sometimes multiple units in one night. Just last week, I wrote 3. The judge pulled up something on his computer, frowning. Officer, according to our records, you've issued 47 noise violations at 412 Oak Street since January. That's almost 2 per week. It's a party building, Your Honor. College kids. I see. And how many of these defendants showed up to contest their citations? Jacobs shifted uncomfortably. Most just pay online. Officer Jacobs, are you aware that 412 Oak Street has only 4 units, and 2 of them have been vacant since December due to renovation? The courtroom went dead silent. Jacobs' face drained of color. Furthermore, the judge continued, voice now sharp as a blade, I'm seeing the same names repeatedly. Residents who work night shifts, elderly tenants, a single mother with an infant. You've been citing an entire building of people who couldn't possibly all be throwing parties. Your Honor, I respond to complaints. From whom? Because I'm looking at the complaint logs, and there's nothing matching these citations. It turned out Officer Jacobs had been padding his numbers, writing blanket citations for entire buildings to meet his quotas. He'd assume poor workers like me would just pay rather than miss work to fight it. The judge dismissed my case immediately, then ordered a review of every citation Jacobs had written. Over 200 fines were reversed. Jacobs was suspended pending investigation.
What's the most messed up prank someone pulled on you? My roommate Jake convinced me I was losing my mind for 3 months. It started small in our apartment. I put my keys on the kitchen counter, then find them in the bathroom. Coffee mug moved from the sink to my bedroom. Weird stuff that made me question myself. Jake would act concerned whenever I mentioned it. Dude, you've been super stressed with work lately. Maybe you're just forgetting where you put things. He'd suggest I get more sleep, eat better, maybe see a doctor about my memory. The incidents got worse. I'd wake up to find my laptop moved to the living room, still warm like someone had been using it. My phone would be in the refrigerator. One morning, I found all my clothes arranged by color in my closet, which I definitely hadn't done. Jake started documenting everything. Here, let me help you keep track, he'd say, writing down each incident in a notebook. Maybe we can find a pattern. The list grew longer every week, and Jake would show it to me with fake worry. This is getting serious, man. I began doubting everything. Did I really put my toothbrush in the kitchen? Had I moved that picture frame? Jake would find me staring at objects, trying to remember if I'd touched them. You're really scaring me, he'd say. Maybe we should call your mom. The breaking point came when I woke up one night to find every single item in my room rearranged. Furniture moved, books reorganized, even my clothes folded differently. I had a complete breakdown, sobbing on the floor, convinced I was having some kind of mental episode. Jake called in sick to work to stay with me. We're getting you help, he said, already Googling psychiatrists. I was ready to check myself into a mental health facility when I noticed something odd about his phone. While he was in the shower, I saw a text notification pop up from his girlfriend Sarah. Is the prank still going? This seems too far now. My blood ran cold. I scrolled up through their messages and found months of planning. Moved his keys again today. He's starting to question everything, lol. Should I stop? He seems really upset. Nah, just a few more weeks. There were photos. Jake had been taking pictures of my confused face, my messy notebook where I tried tracking the incidents, even videos of me talking to myself, trying to remember where I'd put things. The worst part was a voice message from Jake to Sarah. You should see him right now. He's literally crying because he can't find his wallet. I put it in the freezer. This is the funniest thing I've ever done. When Jake got out of the shower, I was sitting on the couch with his phone in my hands. His face went white when he saw the messages open on the screen. Listen, it was just a joke that got out of hand. A joke? I stood up, my hands shaking. You made me think I was losing my mind. I was about to check myself into a psychiatric hospital because of you. He tried to laugh it off. Come on, you're fine. It was just moving some stuff around, no big deal. That's when I realized Jake had been gaslighting me for months, systematically destroying my confidence and mental health for his entertainment. I packed my stuff that night and moved out. Found out later that Jake had been showing the videos to his friends at parties, turning my mental breakdown into comedy entertainment. People I'd never met knew about my memory problems. The trust issues lasted for years. I'd second guess every small thing, wondering if someone was messing with me. Dating was impossible because I couldn't trust my own perceptions anymore. Last week I ran into Sarah at a coffee shop. She immediately started apologizing. I told Jake it was too far, but he wouldn't stop. stop. I'm so sorry. She showed me her phone where Jake was still in our group chat, still bragging about the prank to new people.
What's the biggest promise your parents broke? My parents promised me when I was 8 that if I got straight A's all year, they'd take me to Disney World for my 9th birthday. I worked harder than I'd ever worked, studying every night, doing extra credit, even missing playtime with friends. I got straight A's the entire school year. 2 weeks before my birthday, my parents sat me down and said they'd spent the Disney money on my baby brother's medical bills and we couldn't afford the trip anymore. Instead, they took me to a local carnival that smelled like vomit and had rides held together with duct tape. I was obsessed with Disney World from my first Disney movie. When my parents made the promise in September, I was the happiest kid alive. If you can get all A's this year, we'll take you to Disney World for your birthday, my dad said. But it has to be all A's, kiddo. No B's allowed. My mom nodded enthusiastically. We've already started saving money for it, but you have to hold up your end. I was a decent student, mostly getting B's, but straight A's meant I had to completely change everything. I studied every night, even when I didn't have homework. I'd review notes, read ahead, and ask for extra credit assignments. My friends started calling me a nerd. During recess, while they played kickball, I sat inside finishing math worksheets. When they invited me to sleepovers, I'd decline because I had studying to do. My social life disappeared, but I didn't care. Disney World was worth any sacrifice. Each report card was a victory. First quarter, straight A's. My parents were amazed. Keep it up, honey, my mom said. Disney World, here we come. Second quarter, straight A's again. My dad started showing my report card to neighbors. Look at our little scholar. He'd beam with pride. The pressure was intense, but so was my excitement. I'd watch Disney commercials and imagine myself there. I started making lists of rides I wanted to go on. My room was covered with Disney pictures I'd printed from the library computer. Fourth quarter came, and I was exhausted, but determined. When the final report card came in June, I raced to see my grades. Straight A's. I'd done it. I ran home screaming, I did it! I got all A's! We're going to Disney World! My parents seemed happy, but oddly subdued. That's wonderful, honey, my mom said, but she didn't seem nearly as excited as I expected. My birthday was 2 weeks away. I started counting down the days, talking about nothing but Disney World. Then came the devastating conversation. My parents called me into the living room with serious expressions. Sweetheart, we need to talk about your birthday trip, my dad said. When are we leaving for Disney? I asked eagerly. My mom's eyes filled with tears. Your baby brothers had health problems. The doctor bills were expensive and we had to use the Disney money for his treatment. It felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. What do you mean? We can't afford Disney World right now, my dad said. But we're taking you somewhere special. A traveling carnival's coming to town. I started crying, sobbing that makes your whole body shake. All that work, all those sacrifices, gone. You promised, I whispered through tears. You said if I got straight A's, we'd go. I did everything. We know, sweetheart, and we're so sorry, my mom said. Sometimes adult responsibilities have to come first. But you promised, I screamed. I gave up everything. I lost my friends. I studied every single day. I never even went outside. My birthday weekend arrived and they took me to the carnival. It was everything I'd feared. Sketchy rides, greasy food, and carnival workers who looked like they hadn't showered in weeks. The funhouse was a trailer with broken mirrors and a smell I couldn't identify. I tried to have fun for my parents' sake, but every colorful light reminded me of Disney's parades. Every ride reminded me of Space Mountain. Instead of Mickey Mouse, I got my picture taken with a teenager in a dirty tiger costume who smelled like cigarettes and body spray. The worst part was going back to school and explaining why I didn't go to Disney World. My teacher looked embarrassed when I said carnival. That broken promise changed everything. I never fully trusted them again. When they made promises, I'd think, yeah, until something else comes up. I'm 32 now and still haven't been to Disney World.
When did someone ruin a memory you can never get back? My sister Claire was born exactly 6 months before my birthday, and for 16 years, her half-birthday ruined every single birthday party I ever had. March 15th versus September 15th. Seems innocent enough, right? Wrong. When I turned 7, Mom decided Claire's half-birthday was so close to my real birthday that we should celebrate together to make it fair. That year, I wanted a dinosaur party. I'd been obsessed with Jurassic Park and had my whole theme planned out, but Claire, who was 6.5, started crying because dinosaurs are scary, and she wanted unicorns instead. Guess what my 7th birthday party theme was? Unicorn Dinosaur Adventure. My T-Rex cake had a rainbow horn. Age 10. I begged for a simple sleepover with my 3 best friends. Just us guys, pizza, video games. But Claire's half-birthday meant she got to invite her friends too. My small hangout became a 12-kid circus with Disney princess decorations because Claire picked the theme since she's celebrating too. Age 13. Finally, I was getting a cool teenager party. Batman theme. My friends from middle school. Maybe some girls I had crushes on. I was so excited. Until Claire had a complete meltdown 2 days before because Batman is for boys and it's my half-birthday too. She sobbed until Mom caved. My Batman party became superhero princess with Batgirl decorations and pink streamers every single year. My birthday became about managing Claire's feelings about not having her special day recognized enough. But my 16th birthday was supposed to be different. I begged Mom for months. Please, just once, can it be about me? I'm turning 16. This is important, Mom promised. No Claire-themed compromises. No half-birthday mentions. Just my sweet 16, my friends, my choice. I planned everything perfectly. Rented the community center. Invited my whole class. Got a DJ. Ordered a massive chocolate cake with Happy 16th Birthday Ryan in blue frosting. I was finally getting the birthday I dreamed about for 9 years. The day arrived. My friends started showing up at 6 p.m. Music playing, everyone having fun. Girls I liked were actually there. For the first hour, it was perfect. My birthday, finally. Then Claire arrived. She walked in wearing a birthday tiara and a sash that said birthday girl that she'd apparently made herself. She immediately started telling my friends it was her half-birthday celebration too and asking where her cake was. I pulled Mom aside. You promised this was just my party. I know, sweetie, but Claire was feeling so left out. She made that sash herself. Look how excited she is. Claire had planted herself next to my cake table and was directing the DJ to play Disney songs at my 16th birthday party with my high school friends friends watching. That's when she did it. During the cake ceremony, as everyone gathered around singing happy birthday, Claire started crying. Not quietly, full sobbing meltdown in front of 30 teenagers. "It's my half birthday too," she wailed. "Why does Ryan get a big cake and I don't get anything? It's not fair." The singing stopped. Everyone stared. My crush, Jessica, looked mortified. The DJ didn't know what to do. Mom immediately went into crisis mode. "Oh honey, you're right. We should celebrate Claire too. Ryan, you don't mind sharing your moment, right?" Before I could answer, Mom asked the DJ to restart the song. "Happy birthday to Ryan and happy half birthday to Claire." Claire beamed. My friends looked confused. Jessica whispered something to her friend and they both looked at me with pity. That night, while cleaning up, I found a second cake in our kitchen. A smaller one with happy half birthday Claire written in pink frosting. Mom had planned this the whole time. When I confronted her, she said, "Ryan, family comes first. Claire's feelings matter too. You'll understand when you're older. I'm 23 now." Claire still expects birthday calls on her half birthday. She still posts half birthday girl on social media every March 15th. Last year, she asked when I was planning to throw her a proper half birthday party since she never really got to have one growing up. That 16th birthday was the last one I celebrated at home. For my 17th, I got a job and saved up to take my real friends to a movie and dinner. No family, no compromises, no Claire. But I still can't look at Sweet 16 decorations without feeling that same stomach drop from watching my milestone birthday become another performance about my sister's feelings. Some memories once ruined stay ruined forever.
What happened when I accidentally wore my roommate's push-up bra to my job interview? I'm literally pulling into the parking lot when I notice my chest looks weird. Like really weird. I glance down and realize my boobs are practically sitting under my chin. That's when it hits me. This isn't my bra. I'd rushed out of the apartment that morning because my alarm didn't go off, grabbed the first clean bra from the laundry basket, threw on my interview outfit, and ran. Big mistake. This thing was pushing everything up so high I looked like I was smuggling balloons. The interview was for this marketing assistant job I really wanted. I'd been unemployed for 2 months, living off ramen and my roommate's Netflix password. This was my shot, but I'm sitting in my car looking like I'm auditioning for a completely different kind of job. I tried pulling my blazer closed, but that just made it more obvious. The buttons were straining like they were holding back a dam. I considered driving home, but I was already 5 minutes late and lived 20 minutes away. Plus my gas tank was basically empty and I'd spent my last $10 on dry cleaning this stupid blazer. So I walked in looking like a cartoon character. The receptionist's eyes went straight to my chest, then back to my face with this confused expression. She asked if I was there for the marketing position, and I swear she sounded surprised, like maybe I was in the wrong building entirely. Sitting in the waiting room was torture. Every time I moved, everything moved with me. There was this guy across from me trying so hard not to stare that he was basically looking at the ceiling. A woman next to me kept giving me these weird looks like she was trying to figure out if this was intentional. When they called my name, I stood up too fast and nearly lost my balance. The interviewer was this professional-looking woman in her 40s. She introduced herself as Amy from HR, and I watched her eyes do that same confused scan the receptionist did. The whole interview was a disaster. I kept tugging at my blazer, trying to sit up straight without emphasizing the situation more. Amy asked about my experience with social media campaigns, and I'm pretty sure I said something about engagement metrics while gesturing wildly and making everything bounce around. Then she asked why I wanted to work there. I launched into this prepared speech about company values and growth opportunities, but halfway through, I noticed she wasn't making eye contact anymore. She was just staring at my chest with this expression like she was trying to solve a math problem. That's when I snapped. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "I'm wearing the wrong bra." Just like that. Complete silence. She blinked a few times and I continued. My roommate and I have completely different bra sizes. I grabbed hers by mistake this morning because I was running late. I know how this looks, but I promise this isn't how I normally dress for interviews. Amy just sat there for what felt like forever. Then she started laughing. Not a polite interview laugh, but like actually cracking up. She said she'd been wondering if this was some kind of power move she wasn't familiar with. Apparently her daughter's friend had told her about some study where women who dress more provocatively get hired more often, and she thought maybe that's what I was going for. We ended up talking for another 20 minutes. She told me about her own interview disasters, including the time she wore 2 different shoes to a job interview and didn't notice until lunch. I told her about the time I showed up to the wrong building entirely and interviewed for a completely different company without realizing it. By the end, we were both crying laughing. She walked me to the door and said she'd call by the end of the week. I figured that was just polite rejection talk, but she actually called the next day, got the job.
I didn't order any food, so I wouldn't have to split the bill. So I'm 27, and I've been stuck with this friend group since college. There's like 8 of us total, but 2 people in particular, Susan and Greg, are straight-up parasites. Every single time we go out to eat, they pull the same garbage move. They'll order the most expensive thing on the menu, then suddenly they're broke and need everyone else to cover them. It's been going on for years, and I'm so sick of it. Like last month, we went to this steakhouse, and Greg ordered a $60 ribeye plus appetizers and drinks. Then when the check came, he goes, "Oh man, rent was due this week. Can you guys help me out?" We all ended up paying like $20 extra just for his meal. Susan does the exact same thing every time. So last weekend, my friend Dan texts me about this casual dinner at some restaurant downtown. I immediately tell him that if Susan and Greg are gonna be there, count me out. But Dan keeps pushing me to come, saying I should just put my feelings aside for once and join the group. Against my better judgment, I agree to go. I show up and there's 6 of us total. We're all talking and catching up, and then everyone starts ordering. Most people get stuff around $40, which is pretty normal for this place. Then Susan and Greg's turn comes comes up. Susan orders this lobster dish that's like $95. Plus, she gets an appetizer and expensive wine. Greg gets surf and turf for $120 plus drinks. I'm watching this happen, and I already know what's coming next. When the waiter gets to me, everyone's looking at me expectantly. I pick up the menu, scan it for like 2 seconds, point to the $4 Miller Lite, and tell the waiter that's all I want. Dan immediately goes, "Dude, why aren't you eating anything?" I just shrug and say I lost my appetite. 2 other friends at the table look at each other, then flag down the waiter to cancel their food orders too. They just got drinks instead. The whole dinner was awkward after that. Susan and Greg are eating their fancy meals while half the table is just sipping beer. I could tell they were getting nervous because they kept picking at their food instead of actually eating it. Then the check comes. The total was insane because of their expensive orders. Greg immediately grabs the waiter and goes, "Can you split this 6 ways?" without even asking anyone. I stand up and correct him. Actually, split it 3 ways. 3 of us only had drinks. Greg looks at me all confused and goes, "What?" "We always split the bill evenly." I look him dead in the eye and say, "Well, 3 of us didn't eat any food, so we're just paying for our drinks." The math was brutal. Dan, who probably ate like $50 worth of food, got stuck with a $146.98 check. I swear his jaw hit the floor when he saw that receipt. Susan and Greg had to split the rest between them, which was way more than they expected to pay. I slid a $10 toward the check to cover my beer and tip, said goodbye to everyone, and walked out. The looks on Susan and Greg's faces were priceless. They finally realized what it felt like to actually pay for their own expensive meals. The next morning, I wake up to like 15 angry texts from both of them calling me a jerk for forcing them to pay more than they planned. I actually laughed out loud reading their messages. Like, the steaks alone cost more than what they ended up paying, but somehow I'm the bad guy.
When did you realize you were not the favorite child? I was 14 when my dad bought my younger sister Emma a brand new MacBook for getting good grades while telling me my straight A's were expected. But that wasn't even the moment that broke me. Growing up, I thought the differences were normal. Emma got private violin lessons because she was musically gifted. I taught myself guitar from YouTube because I was naturally talented and didn't need help. Emma's soccer tournaments meant the whole family traveled across the state. My debate championships, Dad had work meetings he couldn't miss. I kept a journal of every time they chose her. Not to be petty, but because I needed proof I wasn't imagining things. By the time I turned 16, I had filled 3 notebooks. Every birthday party where Emma got the bigger cake. Every Christmas where her presents took up more space under the tree. Every time Mom said Emma's sensitive to excuse her tantrums while calling me difficult for asking questions. The breaking point came senior year. I'd worked at the mall food court for 2 years, saving every penny for a car. I had $4,200 in my savings account, money I'd earned cleaning tables and dealing with angry customers. One morning, I woke up ready to finally buy the used Honda I'd been eyeing. My account was empty. I ran downstairs, shaking. "Where's my money?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Mom couldn't look at me. Emma needed it for her study abroad program in Paris. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. That was my money. I worked for 2 years. "You'll have other chances," Dad said. "Emma's program starts next month. We'll pay you back." They never did. And so I realized I wasn't the unfavorite child because I was bad or unlovable. I was the unfavorite because I was reliable. They could take from me because they knew I'd survive. They could ignore me because I'd figure it out myself. Emma was the favorite because she was the squeaky wheel, and I was the one who never needed oil. Something inside me shifted that day. I stopped trying to earn their love and started planning my exit. I applied to colleges across the country using fee waivers. I worked doubles at the mall. I saved every dollar in a new account they didn't know about. When my acceptance letter came from Seattle University with a full scholarship, I didn't tell them. When I got the resident advisor position that covered housing, I kept quiet. The day after graduation, while they planned Emma's graduation party for next year, I packed everything I owned into 2 suitcases. I left a note on the kitchen table. "Took a summer job out of state. Will send address when settled." That was 6 years ago. Last month, Emma called crying. She was 24, living at home, and Mom and Dad were being unfair about paying for her 3rd attempt at grad school. "They keep comparing me to you," she sobbed, "saying you never asked for anything after high school." "That's because they took everything before I could ask," I said. "Can you talk to them? Maybe loan me some money?" I looked around my apartment, small but mine, paid for with my own money. "Emma," I said gently, "I learned something when I was 18. Sometimes being the unfavorite child is the biggest favor your parents can do for you." She hung up on me, but for the first time in my life, I didn't care about being the disappointment.
What family tradition should forever be forgotten? My family had this sick tradition called birthday lashes. Every year when someone turned older, they'd get whipped with a belt once for every year they'd lived. 1 lash for 1-year-old, 5 lashes for 5 years old, 15 lashes for 15. My grandpa started it back when he was in the army, saying it toughened boys up and made us stronger. What started as light smacks turned into this whole twisted ceremony where everyone gathered in a circle, chanting the numbers while the birthday kid stood there shirtless. When I turned 5, I cried so hard I peed myself. Everyone just laughed and took pictures. At 10, Then, Uncle Brad used his thick leather belt and left a mark that bled through my shirt. When I was 12, my older cousin Jake decided to add one to grow on, and whipped me across the back so hard I had a bruise for 3 weeks. I couldn't sleep on my back, but it wasn't just for boys. My little sister Ava got it too, though they told her to wear jeans and a hoodie so it wouldn't leave marks in places that mattered. Nobody ever spoke up about it. Anyone who protested got called soft or weak. My mom would just say, "It's tradition, honey. It builds character." When Ava turned 7, she was absolutely terrified. She spent the week before her birthday throwing up from anxiety. I begged my parents to skip it just this once. Dad looked at me like I'd suggested burning down the house. "This is what makes our family different," he said. "It's what makes us strong." So when Ava's birthday came, I did something nobody expected. As she stood there shaking in the middle of everyone, I moved behind her. When Uncle Brad swung the belt, I stepped forward and took the hit across my shoulder. When Cousin Jake took his turn, I absorbed that one too. Everyone started yelling at me, saying I was ruining it, that I was making her weak, but I didn't care. That night, Ava crawled into my bed and whispered, "I hate my birthday. I wish I was never born." That's when I knew this tradition was completely messed up. A 7-year-old shouldn't hate the day she was born because her family beats her with a belt. Years went by. I moved out for college, then got my own place. I thought the tradition would die with the older generation, but then my cousin Jake sent a group chat invitation. His son Tyler was turning 8, and it was time for his initiation. The message had laughing emojis and said, "Can't wait to toughen up the little man." That's when I completely lost it. I showed up to Tyler's birthday party, but not alone. I brought Ava, who was now 15, and a social worker named Ms. Peterson, who I'd contacted the week before. I told her everything about our family tradition, showed her photos of old bruises I'd kept on my phone, and she agreed to investigate. Walking into that house with Ms. Peterson was like dropping a bomb. The whole family was gathered in the living room, Tyler standing there looking scared while Uncle Brad held his belt. When they saw me with the social worker, the room went dead silent. Ms. Peterson introduced herself and asked to speak with Tyler privately. Meanwhile, my family started freaking out. Dad cornered me in the kitchen, his face red with anger. "You brought CPS into our house on Tyler's birthday? What the hell is wrong with you?" But then Ava stepped forward. She'd been quiet for years, too scared to say anything. But now she was older, braver. She told Ms. Peterson everything. About the bruises that lasted weeks. About crying herself to sleep after birthdays. About how she used to pray she'd die before her next birthday so she wouldn't have to go through it again. The caseworker took photos of Tyler, who had marks on his back from practice sessions leading up to his birthday. She interviewed other kids in the family. Within 2 hours, she documented enough evidence to file a report. What followed was complete chaos. CPS visited several houses in our family. Uncle Brad got investigated for child abuse. Cousin Jake lost custody of Tyler temporarily. The whole family turned on me and Ava like we were traitors who destroyed everything sacred. We got blocked on social media, erased from family photos, uninvited from holidays. It was like Ava and I had never existed. Some relatives I hadn't spoken to in years called just to scream at me. But you know what? I didn't care anymore. The next year, when Ava turned 16, I threw her a real birthday party. I rented a small community center, invited her school friends, bought a huge cake with her favorite strawberry frosting. No belts, no chanting, no fear.
What's the dumbest reason you've ever been kicked out of somewhere? I got banned from a library for reading too much. I'm a speed reader, always have been. During college, I'd camp out at the public library every weekend, going through like 8-10 books per day. I'd arrive when they opened at 9 a.m. with a backpack full of snacks and camp out until closing at 8 p.m. The first few weeks, nobody paid attention. Then the librarians started noticing. Mrs. Donaldson, who worked the checkout desk, began recognizing me. At first, she seemed impressed, but her tone started changing. She'd watch me suspiciously as I returned books the same day I checked them out. Other staff members began whispering when I walked by. I caught them pointing at me during their huddle meetings. The breaking point came on a rainy Saturday in October. I'd already been through their entire mystery section that month. We're talking like 200 books. I was moving into science fiction when Mrs. Donaldson finally confronted me. "Excuse me, but are you actually reading these books or just taking photos of the pages?" I was genuinely confused. "Reading them? Why?" She pulled out a clipboard with what looked like a log of my checkout history. "You've checked out 847 books in the last 3 months. That's more than our top 50 patrons combined." I read fast. I shrugged. "Nobody reads that fast. Are you selling these online? Running some kind of scan and upload operation?" To prove my point, I offered to summarize any book I'd returned. She grabbed 3 random titles from my stack. I gave her detailed breakdowns. Her expression shifted from suspicion to complete bewilderment. Word spread through the library staff. They started treating me like some kind of circus act. The attention made me uncomfortable, but I kept coming. Then the complaints started. Other patrons began approaching the staff, frustrated they couldn't find popular books. Turns out I was checking out entire series before anyone else could get to them. New releases would disappear from shelves within hours of me discovering them. That guy took all the new Stephen King books again. I overheard someone complaining to Mrs. Donaldson. "He's probably reselling them," another patron whispered loudly enough for me to hear. The library director, Mr. Williams, started watching me too. He'd lurk near my table, pretending to organize shelves while observing my reading habits. I felt like a zoo animal. 2 weeks later, the intervention happened. Mrs. Donaldson and Mr. Williams cornered me at my usual spot, surrounded by my daily haul of 15 books. "We need to talk," Mr. Williams said, sitting across from me with a manila folder. He opened it to reveal printed charts and graphs. "Your checkout statistics are unprecedented. You're single-handedly skewing our circulation numbers. The county thinks we're fudging our usage reports." Mrs. Donaldson chimed in. "Other libraries in the system are questioning how our tiny branch has suddenly become the most active in the state. Plus," Mr. Williams continued, "we're getting complaints from regular patrons who can't access popular materials because you've monopolized them." They showed me a petition signed by 30 library members requesting limits on individual checkout quantities. My name wasn't mentioned, but it was obviously about me. "We've never encountered this situation before," Mr. Williams admitted. "We're implementing a new policy. Maximum 3 books per visit, 7-day minimum checkout period.
For 2 weeks, I followed their rules religiously. 3 books, returned exactly 7 days later, but it was torture. The final straw came on a particularly boring Sunday. Without thinking, I grabbed my usual stack of 15 books and headed to checkout. Muscle memory kicked in before my brain could stop me. Mrs. Donaldson's face went from friendly to furious the moment she saw my pile. "We talked about this," she said, her voice carrying across the quiet library. "I'm sorry, I forgot. I can put some back." "No, this is the 3rd time you've forgotten since we implemented the policy." Security appeared within minutes. As they escorted me out, Mr. Williams handed me a formal letter. "You're permanently banned for repeated violation of library policies and excessive resource consumption."
My mother-in-law switched my fertility medication. I caught her on camera, and now my husband has to choose. I never thought I'd be hiding cameras in my own bedroom, but after 6 months of trying to conceive with no success, I was desperate for answers. My husband Jake and I had been trying for a baby for nearly 2 years. After extensive testing, my doctor prescribed fertility medication that needed to be taken at the same time every day. The first 3 months showed promising results. My hormone levels were improving, and my doctor was optimistic. Then suddenly nothing. My levels dropped back to where they started. My doctor was confused, saying it was like I wasn't taking the medication at all, but I was. Every night 9 p.m. sharp, the pill with a glass of water. Never missed once. The only change in our lives was Jake's mother, Diana, moving in with us temporarily while her house was being renovated. Diana had made her feelings about me perfectly clear from the beginning. Parent, I wasn't good enough for her precious son. I was taking him away from her, and worst of all, I was too focused on my career to be a proper mother. The renovation that was supposed to take 6 weeks had stretched to 6 months. During this time, my fertility progress completely stalled. One night, I confided my suspicions to my sister. "You think she's tampering with your medication?" he asked, horrified. "I know how it sounds," I admitted, "but she's the only variable that changed." My sister shipped me a small camera disguised as a phone charger the next day. I plugged it in across from my nightstand and waited for 3 days. Nothing happened. Then, on the 4th day, while Jake and I were at work, the camera caught Diana entering our bedroom. She went straight to my nightstand, opened my pill container, and replaced my fertility medication with what looked like vitamin E capsules from her own supplement bottle. I watched the footage 7 times, my hands shaking. This wasn't paranoia. This was real. I showed the video to Jake that evening after Diana had gone to bed. His face went from confusion to disbelief to something I'd never seen before. Perda a cold, hard anger. "She wouldn't," he whispered, but the evidence was right there on screen. The next morning, Jake confronted his mother at breakfast. I stood beside him, arms crossed as he played the video on his tablet. Diana's reaction was chilling. No denial, no shame, just a calm explanation. "I am protecting you, Jake. She's trapping you with a baby when your marriage is already failing." "Our marriage isn't failing," Jake said, his voice shaking. "Of course it is. Why else would she need fertility treatments? It's not natural. God doesn't want you two to have children. I felt physically ill. You've been sabotaging my health for months. Do you understand that you've been making medical decisions for me without my consent?" Diana turned to Jake, completely ignoring me. Then and G, "Now Jake, your mother who raised you alone for 20 years, or this woman who's trying to trap you?" Jake stood up slowly. "Pack your bags. You are leaving today." Diana's face crumpled in shock. "You can't mean that. Where would I go? Your house renovation was completed 2 months ago. I called your contractor last night." Another lie exposed. Diana began crying, those manipulative tears I'd seen so many times before. "Everything I've done was out of love for you." Jake shook his head. "No, it was control. And it ends today." As Jake helped his mother pack, I sat in our bedroom holding the bottle of fake pills. 3 hours later, Diana was gone. Jake sat beside me on the bed, taking my hand. "I've made an appointment with a therapist," he said quietly. "I need to understand why I didn't see this sooner. Why I let her stay so long. Yesterday, I had my first doctor's appointment since switching back to my actual medication. My hormone levels are already improving. Jake and I are taking things day by day. Trust is fragile, and part of me still wonders why he didn't notice his mother's behavior earlier, but for the first time in months, I feel like we're truly on the same team." As for Diana, she keeps texting Jake that I am turning him against her. He hasn't responded. Some choices once made can't be unmade.
What is the most humiliating thing someone made you do at their house? My boyfriend's dad made me prove I wasn't a gold digger by counting out exact change for a $3 soda. I was 17 and had been dating Marcus for 8 months when he invited me to his family's lake house for the weekend. "Dad's been wanting to meet you," Marcus said nervously. "He can be intense about money stuff." I should have paid attention to that warning. The house was massive, 3 stories overlooking the lake with a boat dock and everything. Marcus's dad, Mr. Chen, greeted me with a firm handshake and immediately started asking about my family. "So your mother works where?" he asked during dinner, cutting his steak. "She's a nursing assistant," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "And your father?" "We don't really have contact with him." Mr. Chen nodded like he was taking mental notes. "I see. And you work too, I assume?" "Yes, sir. At the local movie theater. Concessions mostly." The questions continued through dinner. How much did I make per hour? Did I pay for my own car? Who bought my clothes? After dinner, I was thirsty and asked Marcus if I could grab a Coke from their fridge. "Of course," Marcus said, but his dad immediately stood up. "Actually," Mr. Chen said, walking to the kitchen, "those sodas cost money. If you want one, you need to pay for it." I stared at him, confused. "I'm sorry?" "The sodas. They're $3 each. If you want one, I need you to pay me exact change." Marcus's face went bright red. "Dad, what the hell?" "Language," Mr. Chen snapped. "I am teaching her about financial responsibility. If she's going to date my son, she needs to understand that nothing in life is free." My hands were shaking as I opened my purse and counted out 3 crumpled dollar bills. Mr. Chen watched me closely. "There," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Exact change." He smiled coldly and handed me the Coke. "See? Not so hard to pay your own way." I wanted to run, but Marcus grabbed my hand and whispered, "I'm so sorry." He's never done anything like this before. That night, I heard Mr. Chen on the phone with someone. "Gold digger," he said loudly enough for me to hear
through the walls. Classic case. Give her a few more months and she'll be asking for money. The next morning, at breakfast, Mr. Chen made another announcement. Since you're staying in our house, eating our food, using our utilities, he said, looking directly at me, I think $50 for the weekend is fair. You can Venmo Marcus and he'll pass it along. This time, Marcus exploded. Dad, stop. This is insane. But I was done being humiliated. I stood up, pulled out my phone, and Venmo'd Marcus $50 with the memo. Payment for basic human decency. Then I called my mom to pick me up. Marcus called me crying that night. I told him if he ever treated you like that again, I'd cut him off completely. He said fine, that you were just using me anyway. We broke up 2 weeks later, not because I wanted to, but because being around Marcus meant dealing with his father's constant judgment. Every time we went out, I wondered if Mr. Chen was calculating how much I was costing his precious son. Marcus tried to convince me to stay. We'll only hang out at your place, he promised. I'll pay for everything so he can't say anything. But the damage was done. I couldn't kiss someone whose father thought I was nothing but a walking expense report. 2 months later, Marcus's parents got divorced. Turns out Mr. Chen had been hiding massive gambling debts and using family money to cover his losses. Mrs. Chen took him for everything in the divorce. The lake house, the boat, even his precious investment portfolio. Marcus called me when it happened. Mom found casino receipts going back 3 years, he said, his voice broken. He spent our college funds, the house payment, everything, and he had the nerve to call you a gold digger. The best part? 6 months after that, I saw Mr. Chen working at the same movie theater where I had worked. When he saw me, his face went white. I walked over to the concession stand. 1 large Coke, please, I said, pulling out a $20 bill. He rang it up with shaking hands. $4.50. I handed him the 20 and looked him dead in the eyes. Keep the change, I said. I know how hard it is to pay your own way.
What's the dumbest rule you've ever been caught breaking? My office had this insane policy that all pens had to be company-issued blue ballpoints, no exceptions. Our office manager, Patricia, treated this like a federal law. She'd do surprise pen inspections, confiscating anything that wasn't regulation. Black pens, gel pens, even mechanical pencils were contraband. She once made a grown man empty his briefcase because she spotted a red pen through the leather. I'd been working there 6 months when Patricia caught me signing a document with my favorite purple gel pen, the one my daughter gave me for Father's Day with "World's Best Dad" engraved on it. She materialized behind me like a pen-seeking missile. That's not company-issued, she announced, hand already extended. Violation of Office Supply Policy 7.3. Hand it over immediately. I tried reasoning with her. It's just a pen, Patricia. It writes in purple instead of blue. Who cares? But she launched into a 5-minute lecture about uniformity, professionalism, and the slippery slope of office anarchy. She actually used the phrase gateway writing instrument. Then she confiscated my daughter's gift and tossed it in her violation bin. That night, I read our employee handbook cover to cover. Policy 7.3 stated, all writing instruments must be company-issued blue ballpoint pens for document consistency. It said nothing about how many I could have. The next morning, I arrived early and raided the supply closet. I took exactly 247 blue ballpoint pens, all technically company-issued. When Patricia arrived, my desk looked like a Bic factory exploded. Pens lined up in perfect rows. Pens in coffee mugs. Pens taped to my monitor. I'd even fashioned a pen crown and was wearing it proudly. Good morning, Patricia, I said cheerfully. As you can see, I'm fully compliant with Policy 7.3. Every single pen here is company-issued blue ballpoint. Her eye twitched. This is excessive and disruptive, but completely within policy, I countered, pulling out my highlighted handbook. There's no maximum pen limit specified. She tried to argue, but couldn't. Technically, I was following her precious rules to the letter. Word spread fast. By lunch, my cubicle had become a pilgrimage site. Co-workers kept stopping by to marvel at my pen fortress. Someone started taking selfies with my pen crown. Even serious Sandra from accounting cracked a smile. That afternoon, Patricia sent a company-wide email. Effective immediately, employees are limited to 5 pens maximum. Perfect. I'd been waiting for this. The next day, I brought in 5 pens all right. But these weren't just any pens. I'd found the most obnoxious company-issued blue ballpoints in existence. One played the company jingle when clicked. Another was 3 feet long, technically still a ballpoint. The third had a bobblehead of our CEO attached. The fourth was covered in sequins that shed everywhere. The fifth, a pen attached to a desk-sized chain, like a bank pen from hell. Patricia's face went through 7 different shades of red when she saw them. These aren't standard pens. Actually, I said, clicking the musical pen repeatedly, I requisitioned these from corporate's promotional supplies. They're absolutely company-issued. Here are the order numbers. The breaking point came during the quarterly board meeting. I sat in the back, taking notes with my 3-foot pen like a medieval scribe. The CEO himself stopped mid-presentation. Is that a pool cue? He asked. Company-issued blue ballpoint, sir. Policy 7.3 inches. The entire boardroom erupted in confused laughter as I explained Patricia's pen dictatorship. The CEO looked at Patricia, then at my ridiculous collection, then back at Patricia. By that afternoon, Policy 7.3 was officially revoked. The new policy. Employees may use any professional writing instrument of their choice. Patricia was reassigned to manage our filing system. Turns out she had a thing about paperclips too, but that's another story. I got my purple pen back from her violation bin, along with everyone else's confiscated items. And yes, I still wear my pen crown on casual Fridays. Some victories deserve to be celebrated.